Ethan Mulvern froze at the doorway, unable to believe the sight unfolding in front of him. For 2 agonizing weeks, his daughter, 8-year-old Aurora Mulvern, had refused to eat a single bite. Nutritionists, pediatric psychologists, private doctors, speech therapists, and even world-renowned behavioral specialists had filed through the mansion, each failing in their promises. Yet now, in the golden hush of Aurora's room, the billionaire watched as the new maid, Amara Lewis, hired only 3 days ago, sat beside the trembling girl with a small bowl of warm vegetable stew, and Aurora was opening her mouth. Not just opening, eating. Slowly, cautiously, but undeniably. Ethan's breath hitched as Amara lifted another spoonful, her voice soft, rhythmic, like a melody smoothing over the tension in the air. "Just one more, sweetheart," she whispered, her tone gentle but grounded, the kind that carried invisible strength. Aurora, usually stiff as a statue around strangers, leaned closer to Amara, her tiny hand resting against the woman's arm for balance. Ethan felt his heartbeat roar in his ears. The scene felt unreal, like watching sunlight break through storm clouds after weeks of darkness. He wasn't sure if he should step in or stay frozen. In truth, he feared that one wrong move would shatter the fragile miracle happening before him. Aurora swallowed, then let her forehead rest lightly against Amara's shoulder, something she had not done with anyone, not even him, since the night her mother died. Ethan's throat closed. All these days he had walked the mansion like a ghost, drowning in guilt and helplessness. But this woman, this new maid he barely knew, had gently stepped into Aurora's locked world as if she had always belonged there. Amara raised her eyes, meeting Ethan's stunned expression. She didn't look proud or victorious, just steady and compassionate. "She's been hungry for comfort," she murmured softly. "Not food alone." Those words cracked something inside him. He stepped forward involuntarily, stopping halfway as Aurora glanced toward him, her lips trembling but not pulling away from Amara. "It's all right," Amara soothed, brushing a strand of Aurora's hair back. "Daddy's just happy you're eating." Ethan let out a shaky breath, nodding, unable to find his voice. The polished floors, the designer curtains, the extravagant luxury of the room, none of it mattered anymore. The only thing that mattered was that Aurora had just eaten her first 3 spoonfuls in 14 days. And the impossible was happening right in front of him. Ethan quietly moved into the room, his expensive shoes muffled by the plush carpet, but Aurora didn't flinch the way she usually did. Instead, she blinked at him with the exhausted softness of a child who had been carrying a grief too heavy for her small shoulders. Amara kept speaking to her, weaving little stories between each spoonful, telling her about a hummingbird she once rescued, a flower that bloomed only when someone spoke kindly to it, and a girl with a brave heart who learned to smile again. Aurora seemed spellbound by these calm, imaginative tales. Ethan had hired Amara for her impeccable references and spotless work record, not knowing she possessed this natural ability to heal. As Aurora took another bite, Ethan finally found his voice. "How did you do this?" he whispered, not wanting to interrupt the rhythm. Amara paused, glanced at him, and replied with quiet honesty, "Loss can silence children. I've seen it before. They don't starve themselves because they're stubborn, but because they're drowning quietly. Sometimes, they just need someone who listens." Her tone wasn't boastful. It carried the weight of someone who had witnessed far too many invisible wounds in others. Ethan swallowed hard. He had been burying himself in business meetings, calls with specialists, obsessing over solutions, trying to engineer a cure for his daughter's silence the same way he built companies. Efficiently, logically, aggressively. But Aurora needed softness, patience, presence. Things he had forgotten how to give after his wife's passing. Aurora tugged gently at Amara's sleeve. "Another story," she whispered, the first words Ethan had heard her speak in 4 days. His knees nearly buckled. Amara nodded, her smile warm. "Of course. But we finish 2 more bites first." The little girl nodded obediently. Ethan felt something hot sting the back of his eyes and turned away slightly, pretending to examine a bookshelf. He hated feeling powerless, but watching Amara, he realized he wasn't powerless. He was just wounded, same as Aurora. And maybe, just maybe, This woman had arrived in their home not as a maid, but as the missing piece neither of them knew they needed. He watched the two interact, Aurora leaning into Amara's side, her small fingers curling around the woman's wrist like she was holding onto an anchor. A warmth spread across the room that Ethan hadn't felt since his wife was alive. Something was changing. Something deep, something miraculous. When Aurora finished nearly half the bowl, Amara gently set it aside and wiped the girl's lips with a soft napkin. She didn't rush. She didn't praise excessively. She didn't treat the moment like an accomplishment to be displayed, but rather like a fragile seed that needed quiet protection. Aurora leaned her head onto Amara's lap, breathing steadily, her small body finally relaxed. Ethan pulled a chair closer and sat, every motion slow, as if afraid he might break the spell. "She trusts you," he murmured, unable to hide the awe in his voice. Amara's hand softly rested on Aurora's back. "Children feel sincerity more than words," she said. "She knows I'm here for her. No expectations. No pressure. Just presence." Ethan stared at her, studying the calm strength in her posture. She was not like anyone he had hired before. No rigid professionalism, no distant politeness. Instead, she carried this quiet dignity, this warm, steady confidence that made people feel safe. It hit him that she wasn't just helping Aurora, she was helping him too, pulling him back from the edge of despair he had been teetering on for weeks. The room filled with a peaceful silence, broken only by the soft sound of Aurora's breathing. Ethan finally spoke again, his voice rough. "I've failed her, haven't I?" he whispered. Amara met his eyes gently. "You've been grieving too," she replied. "You're allowed to hurt. But your daughter doesn't need a perfect father, she needs one who stays." The words struck him with unexpected force. Ethan lowered his gaze, feeling the weight of truth settle on his shoulders. For the first time in weeks, Aurora's room didn't feel like a place of fear. It felt warm. Alive. Ethan looked up again, watching Amara brush her fingers through Aurora's hair with a tenderness that reminded him of his late wife. His heart ached, but not in the same hopeless way. This ache was softer, like the beginning of healing. He knew, deep down, that Aurora wasn't eating because of a trick or technique. She was eating because she felt safe with someone who saw her not as a problem to fix, but as a child to comfort. Ethan took a long breath. "Thank you," he said, voice quiet but filled with sincerity. "You've done what I couldn't." Amara shook her head softly. "You're her father, Mr. Malvern. She'll always need you more than anyone." And for the first time in a long while, Ethan believed it. As afternoon light filtered through the windows, Aurora stirred, lifting her head sleepily from Amara's lap. She blinked, looking healthier, still pale, still fragile, but no longer hollow. Ethan leaned forward with a small smile, trying to hide the tears still clinging to his lashes. "Hi, sweetheart," he whispered. Aurora glanced between him and Amara, then did something that shattered Ethan's composure completely. She reached out her tiny hand toward him. Ethan immediately took it, holding it gently, as if touching a miracle. Amara stood slowly. "I'll give you two a moment," she said, stepping back. But Aurora's hand reached toward her again, clutching the air. "Stay," the little girl whispered. Ethan looked at Amara and nodded. She sat beside him, and for a moment, the three of them existed in a small circle of quiet healing. Ethan spoke softly to his daughter. "You made Daddy so proud today." Aurora placed her head on his shoulder, something she hadn't done in months. He closed his eyes, letting the moment wash over him. Amara watched the father and daughter with a soft smile, her presence grounding, her warmth steady. For the past years, Ethan's life had been a brutal race. Meetings, mergers, empires, numbers. But here, in this quiet room, none of that mattered. Only this moment did. Aurora's voice, small but steady, broke the silence. "Amara, will you stay with us?" Ethan's heart twisted. He didn't want to overstep or assume, but the idea of losing this gentle force of calm terrified him. Amara placed a hand on Aurora's back and nodded. "As long as you want me, sweetheart." Aurora smiled, an actual weak but genuine smile, and Ethan felt a piece of his world click back into place. He didn't fully understand how Amara had done it. Maybe it was empathy born from her own hardships. Maybe it was kindness learned through pain. Or maybe some people were simply created to heal others. As Aurora rested against both of them, Ethan realized something profound. This woman hadn't just fed his daughter. She had given them hope. And hope, after everything they'd lost, was the most impossible miracle of all.